Good evening. My name is Daniel Ash, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at the Chicago Community Trust. And it's my responsibility to welcome you here for this wonderful, wonderful event. On behalf of Terry Mazzani, our President and CEO, who couldn't be here tonight, I want to acknowledge how proud we are to be part of this partnership that makes Generation All the program that it's become. This partnership with Chicago Public Schools, Chicago Teachers Union, the Ford Foundation, and the community, we've come together to do some extremely important work. And quite frankly, it represents what the Chicago Community Trust is trying to do across all of its program areas. Our belief is simple. Our belief is that good policy, good programming for our community begins with the community. Community voice, true collaboration is, again, the genesis of progressive policy that benefits all Chicagoans. This work, again, we're going to learn much more about from our fearless Executive Director, Beatrice, is absolutely critical for our city. And the Trust, again, is very, very proud to be a catalyst making such things happen. So without further ado, I want to introduce our Executive Director, Beatrice Ponce de Leon, who, quite frankly, I get to see her every day at the Chicago Community Trust. Her and her team have worked tirelessly to make this initiative what it is. So I get to see that up close. And for all of those who've participated in many meetings, planning sessions, know that you just constantly see this group moving, asking, pushing. And without them, without her leadership, quite frankly, we would not be here. Beatrice Ponce de Leon.
I'm a little shorter than Daniel, so I'll bring this down. Well, I can just say, wow, that's like the first word that comes to my mind. Thank you, Daniel, for that introduction, but thank you to everyone who is here this evening. We were comparing this event to a wedding or maybe to giving birth. You know, it's like the culmination of something, but also the beginning of something new. And we're just so, so excited to see the familiar faces, new faces, but really just friendly faces of all of you who are interested in exploring what we can do for our neighborhood public high schools and for the students and communities that they're a part of. So once again, thank you all very much for choosing to be here with us this evening. I want to talk a little bit about who's here tonight. We had over 300 people registered, and we asked you when you registered what neighborhoods you're from and what you're currently doing to support neighborhood public high schools. And I was surprised. I looked through the list. There were 87 distinct Chicago neighborhoods represented. From the W's stood out to me. So it was Woodlawn, West Elston, the West Loop, and Wicker Park. And then we also have people here, or people who registered from 8 different suburbs from around the city. A lot of folks who are interested in Chicago schools and in our students. So thank you. We did ask, what are you currently doing to support neighborhood high schools? Just to get you thinking about that. And we heard people say, or we read, you're mentoring, you're teaching, you're writing grants, you're voting in the local school council elections, which actually are happening today and tomorrow, so I encourage you to do that. You're advocating for students. Someone said that they're providing paid internships for CPS students. And then I think my favorite was a handful of people that said nothing, but then they said nothing yet, which was very hopeful. And that's what today is about, is to invite people to really join this effort. We're here to celebrate and to take action. That's what we talked about when we put together our invitation. We want to celebrate our neighborhood public high schools and people like you and others who really work every day to support them, whether it's directly in the school or out in the community or across the city. We also want to take action. We want to begin to mobilize people in supporting neighborhood public high schools and their students. We know that everyone in our city has a part in this. Everyone has a role to play. And so tonight is about inviting you all to join us in whatever way you can as an individual, an organization, or a leader in your own circle. We are looking at why it's important to invite Chicagoans to join us in supporting our neighborhood high schools and their youth. And the point I think that we came together around after weeks of discussion is that we want to make sure that in Chicago, our young people have access to a top quality high school education. Learning opportunities that are not the result of their circumstances, but that regardless of the zip code that they live in, the test scores they have, or the luck that they might have or not have, they have access to high quality learning opportunities. And we know that doing that and working through our neighborhood high schools, we can help young people feel grounded in their communities, but also have access to the wider community and to the wider city. We don't want people to be isolated in their communities. We think neighborhood high schools with the partnerships and the energy and resources that our city has can be a good place for exploring beyond their community. We also know that our neighborhood public high schools play a very important and special part in our education ecosystem in Chicago. We're a city that has many opportunities for students, and neighborhood high schools have a role to play in that ecosystem. Almost half of Chicago public high school students, it's 42.5%, attend a neighborhood public high school. So they might not be their own, but they are at a neighborhood public high school. That means that our neighborhood public high schools serve the most students. They're the type of school that serves the most students. And if we think about neighborhood public high schools, not only do they serve students, but they can really be vital community institutions. In some communities, they already are. In others, they're struggling, but they can be. They have the potential to be. We know that neighborhood public high schools can provide a place for families, for students, for teachers, residents, community residents to learn, grow, and work together, improving their lives, but also making their schools stronger and making their communities stronger. And ultimately, we know that healthy neighborhood public high schools are critical to the vitality and the prosperity of our city. I want to say that again because I think sometimes we forget that. Healthy neighborhood public high schools are critical to the vitality and the prosperity of our city. Thank you. This is a little bit of a long list, but I think we have to remind ourselves that the students of today are the nurses, the youth workers, the engineers, and the teachers. They're going to be the bankers, the program officers, the entertainers, the childcare providers, the aldermen, the researchers, the community organizers, the customer service reps, the Black Club leaders, the volunteers, the local school council members, and the taxpayers of our city. And so we need to prepare them well. One question I have is, shouldn't our neighborhood public high schools be among the best schools that Chicago has to offer? We think yes. Our city, in an effort to improve education over the years, has really kind of taken on an approach that many across the country have, which was to open new schools and to do that as a way perhaps to have competition lift everyone up or be innovative. Some of those schools are doing really well. We just saw in the news this week that our selective enrollment schools are among the top in the country. We know that there are schools that do serve our students well, and there's a place for them. But we also know that sometimes having many choices, although it sounds good and it sounds like it's the American way, it also can have some unintended consequences. We think that Chicago has in some ways reached a tipping point. We've opened more schools than we have students to fill them, and we haven't necessarily thought strategically about how these schools all work together. And so some of the unintended consequences that we've seen are lower enrollment or declining enrollment in some neighborhood schools. We've seen schools that are being sort of concentrated with there's concentrations of students with poverty-related challenges, other special needs, and we've seen limited investment in some of our neighborhood schools, just infrastructure and facilities, as maybe resources have gone to opening and building new schools. While the new schools have provided some opportunity for some students, we don't know, we don't have clear evidence that they've really elevated all of our students. So we're not thinking that we need to turn the whole system around and dismantle it, but we want Chicagoans to really consider the possibility. Consider the possibility that the talent, the energy, the resources that have gone into opening so many new schools could have been spent also to significantly improve our neighborhood public high schools. We also want to look critically at what we've created to make sure that we're not exacerbating inequality in our city, that we're not tracking and sorting students by ability, by income, by circumstance, but that we're really providing opportunities for all students. In order to expand equity in education, equity which is about fairness, not about equality, but about really giving young people what they need, in order to expand equity, we need to make sure that high-quality learning opportunities are available to students who don't have them. Start there, start with the students with the highest need, and that they're easily available. Easily available means that students don't have to compete, they don't have to get lucky, they don't have to travel for 2 hours, but that they have opportunities that are open to them that really meet their needs. I think that when we think about neighborhood public high schools, because they serve the most CPS high school students, and many of them are in many of our most challenging communities, that this is really the opportunity for us to invest in them, to prioritize them as a city, and to fulfill the promise of public education, which is the American way. So thank you very much. As you can see, I saw some of you walking around already. The plan is all around us. You have it in the bags, it's up on the wall, and you'll have the opportunity to talk to people throughout the night who've been involved in creating this plan and this vision for Chicago. So I will talk a little bit about it in a few minutes, but before I do that, I want to just say thank you. And sometimes, thank yous go on a little long, but they're really important. I believe strongly in appreciating and acknowledging people for their work and their contributions. First, I want to say thank you to my colleagues, my team, Abby McLaren and Ms. Suzu Scheck-Snyder. They're around here somewhere. As Daniel said, we have a small team, but we're very productive, and Abby and Ms. Suzu not only organized and made sure everything came together today, but they really work hard every day with me and others to advance the mission of Generation All, so I'm very deeply grateful for that. We also, as a team of 3, can't do this work alone, so we've pulled in multiple partners and consultants, and we have the support of the trust, and I thank all of you who are part of that extended team. I want to express a special thank you to the steering committee. Most of our steering committee members are here with us tonight. This group, you'd be surprised, we started with 41 members, and we were pretty consistent in keeping the majority of our steering committee unless people cycled out to a new job. But they met monthly, almost every month for about a year, and our meetings were from 4 to 8 p.m. So if you can imagine coming after work to meet with a group of people, some that you knew, some that you didn't know that well, and really begin to learn and grapple with these ideas together. We're just so thankful and grateful for the steering committee. And on that committee, about half were people who are impacted by these recommendations: students, teachers, principals, and parents. And then the other half, people who work with schools or with the city, from universities, policymakers. And there wasn't always agreement, but they learned to really discuss, learn, debate, and then come to a consensus. So please thank you very much to the steering committee who's here. From the beginning, we wanted to make sure that the work that came out of Generation All was informed both by research and by the experiences and the expertise of people in our city. So we have an advisory group of national kind of thought leaders in education and in school improvement, and they were really instrumental in making sure that the ideas we were discussing were grounded in some evidence. I appreciate their role in this process. And finally, bringing it back to the beginning, This was founded in partnership with the Chicago Public Schools, the Chicago Teachers Union, the Chicago Community Trust, and with a very generous grant and support from the Ford Foundation. So I would like to thank our 4 founding partners. We have 3 of them here today. Daniel was here in the place of Terry Mazzani, who was traveling and couldn't make it today. But the trust has been, it's our home, it's where we're located, and they have really been instrumental in helping us to begin to build our initiative. Janice Jackson, the Chief Education Officer from Chicago Public Schools, is serving on our advisory committee. Thank you very much, Janice, for coming today. And Karen Lewis, who was one of the original founding partners, you're the only one of the 4 originals to be here tonight. President of the Chicago Teachers Union and a very strong supporter and advisor for our work. Thank you very much, Karen. Okay. And now I'm actually going to turn it over to Karen for a few remarks about where this initiative is and how we got started. So Karen.
So, many of you may know, but I taught high school chemistry for 21 years. And high schools are very important to me. I went to Kenwood High School. Any Broncos here? Bronco love? So, yeah. But when I look at the history of Kenwood, Kenwood was built because Hyde Park had gotten too scary, all right? So I remember when the shift from going to your neighborhood school became reality. And there were a lot of people in our neighborhood that were absolutely against building Kenwood because they knew that it was going to have a huge impact on Hyde Park. And that's what happened. But then Kenwood got too scary. So people went to Whitney Young if they could get in. So we had this unintended consequence of not continuing to strengthen our neighborhood schools. We've seen it, and there has to be a way to make that undone. By not taking away from the schools that we have, but by supporting the ones that need it the most. And when B approached me and said, would you be interested? And I said, well, who else is involved? Because I'm always, I don't want to get burned by certain people that have other agenda, and well, because it happens. But she came up with the idea that CPS was behind it, the mayor's office was behind it, and the trust was behind it. So having had really good experiences with Terry Mazzani when he was the interim CEO, I'm still not getting that CEO thing. It bothers me when we talk about education and we talk about CEOs, because it shouldn't be a profit-making endeavor. And we should have safe spaces for every child in this city to flourish. And I am so proud of what so many of our students are doing in traditional public high schools. So thank you for asking us and for supporting the project. The one thing I also want to do is say, the one thing I did ask is that we not rush into something. Because, sorry, been involved with CPS my entire life, including my own education. I've seen things come in that look really good and exciting, and they're never given the time to grow. They just come in, here's a new project, here's a new thing. I mean, I've got binders upon binders upon binders from countless professional developments that went nowhere. But this, I said, I will participate if we have a significant amount of time to plan it right. And I want to thank the Ford Foundation and the Trust for taking that time, and thank CPS for not pulling out when things got crazy. because they did. So I just want to thank you for having this opportunity and hope that you all enjoy what you learned today and spend some time with these amazing kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. We have one more speaker for you, and I think this is maybe my favorite of the evening because along the way, we've really met a ton of people from different schools, different organizations, and we were introduced to Rayshawn Burns, who's a student at Foreman. He is the president of his class, or of the student government, and he's also a Mikvah Challenge leader. And he has a really great story about how his neighborhood high school has worked for him, but really also an example of how it takes more than the immediate school to make a very comprehensive and powerful education. So Rayshawn, please come and join us.
Hi, so I'm Rayshawn Burns. I go by Ray for short. I'm born and raised in Chicago. I'm 18. I live with my mom and my 3 little sisters. For fun, I like to make music, perform music, play sports, and if I have enough money, build a computer for a family member or something. Originally, I was supposed to go to high school at Gwendolyn Brooks, because it was close to my house. It was selective enrollment, and my mom was all about that. But then we ended up moving to Belmont Cragen, and so that was way too far, and I didn't want to be commuting to Lane Tech either. So I ended up going to Foreman because it was just like a 15-minute walk from my house. And during my freshman year at Foreman, I met a man named Michael D. Iakova. He was an English teacher at Foreman, and I don't know how it happened, but somehow he ended up following me like every year throughout my high school career up until junior year. And because of him, I got into a program called One Goal, which is like a college help type program that teaches students what they need to do to get into college and then be successful and graduate from college. And then he also was the reason I got involved in Mikvah Challenge, because one day in One Goal, he came like rushing into the room near the end of the day, and he's like, "It's the last day to register for this Mikvah Challenge program. I think it'll be super good for you and your college applications." And like, he was so enthusiastic about it, so I wasn't gonna tell him no. So, so I did it. I didn't really put too much into the application. I was just like, whatever, I'll do it. And I still somehow ended up getting accepted to the CEO of CPS's Student Advisory Council through Mikvah Challenge, and that gave me a huge network of people that helped me to get involved in programs and do things that look good for colleges and are just good building my personal skills, speaking skills, and being able to work with other people and knowing that my opinion isn't always right. He was one of the teachers at Foreman. There's many teachers at Foreman who were like this to other students that will help them even with like their academic life and emotional life at home, just making sure the students were okay and making sure the students had all they needed to succeed as best as they could. And sadly, him and many other students at my school, teachers at my school got laid off because of the budget cuts. And so class sizes at Foreman have been super huge. For example, in my English 110 course, which is a dual credit course we have with Wright, it was supposed to be 2 separate classes taught by 2 separate teachers. One of the teachers got laid off, so it's 1 class. So if we have a day where every student shows up to class, there's going to be at least 2 students standing up in the back doing their work. We have tiles missing from the floors. The books are super old, computers outdated, and just go on and on. The field is not fit to play on, so we can't have sporting events at our school. We can only practice on our field, and that messes up Foreman's money even more because nobody's gonna pay to come and play there. It's unfair because the students that go to Foreman are not worth any less than the students that go to the selective enrollment schools. For example, a friend of mine, his name is Jose Sobranis. He's been in my classes since I was a freshman as well. This kid is super smart, and he wanted to go to, what's the name of that school? Northside Prep, the really good one. And he wanted to go there, and his mom didn't let him go there because he has to take his little brother to school and then watch his little brother after school. So he needed to be close because his little brother's school is also a neighborhood school while his mom works. But this kid got a 33 on his ACT, and he has a 4.9 GPA. And like, you compare him to a selective enrollment student, why are they any better than somebody like him? And there are many students at Foreman that are like this. They're just extremely smart. And another reason why it's unfair that neighborhood schools get so much less money is because, well, charter schools, they're good schools. I'm not downing them on that or trying to down talk charter schools, but a neighborhood school can't kick a student out for underperforming. And that's the difference. So in that sense, charter schools can skew their data and kind of play the system to get more money when a neighborhood school can't. And that's very unfair, especially for the students at these neighborhood schools that actually do want to succeed and do want the best for their futures. At Foreman, well, my entire life before coming to Foreman, I had either been at like all black schools or all white schools because I lived in Iowa for like 3 years. And when I got to Foreman, it was pretty cool. I was around Hispanic people. What happened? Oh, sorry. So when I got to Foreman, I got to be around Hispanic people for the first time, and I quickly learned that it was very offensive to think that all Hispanics were Mexican. But it was a good experience because now I know a lot. I know a lot about a lot of different cultures and cultures that are more similar to mine, cultures that are different. And I met a bunch of different types of people, which I think was really cool. And I enjoy being around people that look different from myself and learning about them and their lives, the way they live, their culture, etc. And then being involved at mikvah, I also got the same thing. There's like Middle Eastern people at mikvah, there's Asians, there's all types of people involved in mikvah, and it was just really cool. So, and also through mikvah, not only did I get to meet a lot of people that are different from myself, which is great in itself, but I also got a lot of networking skills as well, which stemmed from my mentor who I met through Foreman. I got personal tours of Skadden's law firms, and I've gotten offered an internship from the state rep. I think his name is Will Gazzardi. I haven't contacted him because, but he offered it to me, which was cool. And I got that through my mentor at Foreman. And these teachers at these neighborhood schools genuinely do care about their students, because otherwise, who would want to teach at a neighborhood school at a time when CPS is like this, when their job is in jeopardy? So yeah, basically the gist of what I'm trying to say is that neighborhood schools and neighborhood students deserve the same treatment as selective enrollment students and charter students. So for me, after high school, I plan on going to Austin, Texas for college at a school called St. Edward's University. They're offering me a lot of money, so. But I applied to a school in Austin, Texas because, well, I applied to that school in Austin, Texas because UT Austin wasn't on the Common App, and I was kind of tired of filling out applications at that point. So I applied there, but I got in, and they gave me money, which was good. Yeah. And I'm really into, like I said when I first started speaking, I'm really into making music, performing music. I actually got 2 of my songs played on Radio DePaul this year, which was cool. But so that's the music capital of the world. And then I'm also very into politics and activism, and that's the capital of Texas. So I felt like it was like a win-win situation for me, so I might as well go there. And after college, I plan on being an economist for a while. Hopefully I can work for the government. But my ultimate goal, though, is to hold an elected position, maybe something in Chicago, hopefully something in Chicago. Yeah. That's all. Thank you, guys.
Okay, these are some of our neighborhood public high school students. Thank you, Rishan. That was great. I'm not going to go into the plan because we're a little bit over time, but I will say that we gathered our ideas and we broke them up into practice, which looks at how to make schools exciting, challenging, safe, and supportive places of learning that really prepare students for the future. We put some ideas in policy, which get at 3 core things that we think could change from a policy perspective in Chicago to really expand equity. And then we had a whole group of ideas for public engagement. And the public engagement just kept coming back up because we thought a lot of plans and a lot of groups focus on the practice, the business of improving schools. They focus on policy, but they don't think about the public engagement. And so that's what sort of, I think, ties our plan together in a different way. And that's what has enabled us to think of this launch as an invitation to all of you. So the next portion of the program is just that. So we invite you to explore the zone on this side, which is 5 schools. You'll see them in the program. We asked them, there were schools that we had heard and knew were doing some really innovative, rigorous learning around certain areas, and we asked them to come with students and teachers or mentors to share some of what they're doing. On the back wall, we have the plan. Big billboards or banners with the plan on them, and space for you to write comments, questions, add ideas, challenge the ideas. So there will be steering committee members in that corner of the room that you can ask questions to and interact with, and then over here, the students and the staff from the schools. Every time you talk to someone, you can ask for a Generation All bracelet. We have these very cool looking blue bracelets, and at the end of the night, we're going to figure out a way to, people who collect the most bracelets will get a book from one of our advisors, Dr. Pedro Noguera. It's called Equity and Excellence, and it's a really it's a really excellent book. So please go off, enjoy, meet someone new, and have fun. Thank you.